Hello all, I Dr. Sneha Devari will be discussing about pelvic organ prolapse in detail in today's lecture. So we will see what is pelvic organ prolapse, what are its types, what is the pathophysiology, what are the causing factors, what is the preventive measures we can take, or what are the way of treating the pelvic organ prolapse. Along with that, we'll see the Ayurveda correlation of the same. So starting with the lecture, first whenever we're talking about pelvic organ prolapse, the anatomy of pelvic organ should be clear. So we'll just see to that in a brief for the understanding of a lecture further. So if we see this anatomy of pelvic organ, we have to see what comes in the anterior side of the pelvic of the female, posterior side of the pelvic of the female, and medial. So anteriorly we know it's surrounded with the bladder and urethra. Posteriorly there is rectum, this, and pouch of Douglas. Then in medium, in vaginal canal, what is there? Uterus, and the vault areas will be there. So anteriorly bladder and urethra, posteriorly rectum, pouch of Douglas, this, and in the middle portion of the vagina will be, or pelvis will be, the uterus. So this is just seeing the brief of anatomy of pelvic organ so that further understanding of the lecture is easy. Now next is to talk about what is POP. POP, that is pelvic organ prolapse. First thing is then what is POP? First, unique disorder found in females. Secondly, it related to the downward displacement of the pelvic organs from its normal anatomical position. And next is that it caused because of the defect in any kind of supporting structures of the uterus or the vaginal wall. Now next is understanding the types of the prolapse. This is very important because if types of the prolapse are understood, we can have a very easy understanding of the subject. So to understand it, we should follow this table, because if we follow the table, understanding will be easy. So we could understand it in two ways. One is to the representative of the internal genitalia and external genitalia. So if we see to the external genitalia, that will be vaginal wall prolapse, and if we see to the internal genitalia, then it will be the prolapse of uterus only. So first seeing to the external genitalia, that is related to the vaginal wall. In that it can be understood in two ways. One is anterior vaginal wall prolapse, another is posterior vaginal wall prolapse. So if there is any kind of prolapse into the anterior vaginal wall, that will be when it will be happen, whether if there is prolapse of bladder, that will be cystocele. So it can be seen in the upper 2/3 of the anterior vaginal wall. Next is if there is a prolapse of urethra, that we call it as urethrocoele, that can be seen to the lower 1/3 of the anterior vaginal wall. Next is cystourethrocoele. Cystourethrocoele is nothing but when there is prolapse of uterus and bladder both, then we call it as cystourethrocoele. Then next is posterior wall. So what happened in posterior wall? It can be understood in three ways. One is relaxed perineum. What is relaxed perineum? This is very common, find in the mid-age women, and it happens mainly to after a childbirth. After childbirth, perineum will be a bit relaxed, or after a repetitive coital acts. Then next is rectocoele. Rectocoele is nothing but the prolapse of the rectum. So in posterior wall, if we see the prolapse, it might be rectocoele or vault prolapse. Vault prolapse is what? It can be understood again in two ways. One is primary and secondary. So primary vault prolapse is like it is called as enterocoele. That is nothing but when in pouch of Douglas there is prolapse of the intestines or omentums are coming along, that is called as enterocoele. Because of the displacement of intestine only, it is called as enterocoele. Otherwise it is the prolapse in pouch of Douglas. So it can be seen in upper 1/3 of the posterior vaginal wall, and rectocoele will be seen in lower region of the posterior vaginal wall. Then next is secondary. Secondary vault prolapse is what? It will be always be happening following the any kind of hysterectomy, especially vaginal hysterectomy or abdominal hysterectomy. So what happened? Vault is what? Vault is nothing but vaginal canal sealing only. The anterior or top head of the vaginal canal, when there is prolapse there, that will be called as vault prolapse. So if it is irrespective of any surgery, then it is primary. If it is post surgery complications, then it will be secondary. When there will be hysterectomy has been done, removal of uterus has been done, and the walls has been repaired. The wall has been stitched back, but due to some reason they bulge out or they start prolapsing, then it will be called as vault prolapse. So in posterior wall we see there are three prolapse. One is relaxed perineum, then rectocele, then vault prolapse. Now next is in respective of internal genitalia, that is uterine prolapse. Uterine prolapse can be understood in two ways. One is utero-vagina, which is very common. Next is congenital, that is by birth if there is prolapse of the uterus. So it's happened in very rare case. In next coming slides we will be seeing about it. Then this is the one understanding for the types of genital prolapse. Next is in another way also we can understand in the means of compartment, like anteriorly which organs are there, posteriorly which organs are there, and middle which organ. Here we have seen it respective of the external genitalia and internal genitalia. Here we'll see in respect of the compartments or the when we divide the whole pelvic area into the compartment position, like anteriorly which are there, that is bladder and urethra. We know anteriorly these organs will be there in pelvic area. And next is paravagina. Paravagina is nothing but again combination of cystocele and urethrocoele. So in anterior wall, either it will be prolapse of bladder, either it will be prolapse of urethra, or it might be a paravagina, that is prolapse of both bladder or bladder and urethra. Next is middle prolapse. In middle compartment we mainly see only uterus prolapse or vaginal vault. These are mainly found in parous women only, but sometimes in rare cases these are found in nulliparous also. Then next is posterior. Posterior will see pouch of Douglas prolapse that we had discussed, that is androcele, or rectum prolapse, that is rectocele, or relaxed perineum. So this is basically about all the types of genital prolapse or herniations we see in the female pelvic organ. Then moving to next, what are the, or first we'll just see the picture for clear understanding of the same. Some images are there which will help you to understand it better. So if you see, this picture will give us more better understanding. This is the picture of anterior wall prolapse cystocele, that is prolapse of the bladder when bladder is prolapsing in the vagina, anterior vaginal wall. Next is urethrocoele, that is prolapse of the urethra in the anterior vaginal wall. Here you can see urethra prolapsing, here prolapsing of bladder. So in clinical examination, how we will differentiate? First, if there is any bulging in anterior vaginal wall. So if there is the bulging in anterior vaginal wall in upper area, then it is bladder prolapse. In lower 1/3, then it is urethral prolapse. Then next is in the case of posterior vaginal wall. So here this is pouch of Douglas. See, in this pouch of Douglas it's prolapsing, intestines are prolapsing. This is also a very rare case. Next is rectocele, this rectum. Rectum is prolapsing in the posterior vaginal wall. Then next is vault prolapse. This picture will give the clear understanding. Here the hysterectomy has been done, removal of the uterus done, and when the removal of the uterus has been done, the vault has been prepared, vault has been stitched back. जहाँ पे पहले यूट्रस था उस एरिया पे आफ्टर रिमूविंग द यूट्रस वी हैड स्टिच्ड द walls of the vagina and we create a wall. So sometime post hysterectomy, only in 5 to 7% of the cases, what happens, this vault will be prolapsing. Not immediately it might be happening, but after the some period of time. So this is about the vault prolapse. Then next is uterine prolapse. This uterus normal position is this, but it will be prolapsed and will be coming to up to the vagina orifice, or it may come beyond the vagina orifice. So this is short description of the types of the prolapse. Then next, so if we see the pathology for it, we'll see there will be weakness of the pelvic ligaments, which may be due to the age factor or due to the some other reason, might be congenital, or during the labor any complication might have happened. Because of this there will be weakening of pelvic ligaments, which will what to further, they will cause the downward rotation of the levator plate from its horizontal position. That is, levator ani muscles will form a plate in a horizontal pattern. It will be causing this pelvic ligament loosening, will causing the downward movement of this levator plate, and which will what to further, it will cause the stress on the endopelvic fascia, hence it will descend the pelvic organs. So this pathophysiology will be the explanation for the uterus prolapse along with the anterior vaginal wall and posterior vaginal wall prolapse. But sometimes it happens there is only anterior vaginal wall prolapse or posterior vaginal wall prolapse, where there is no involvement of the loosening of pelvic ligament is there. So that will happen where there will be any kind of stress on the endopelvic fascia. Only this region will be there mainly, or it might be because of pressure causing the downward rotation on the levator ani muscles and causing this stress on the endopelvic fascia. So in which cases it happen, we'll see further, but first we'll see it in more understanding way, so that will be clear. This pathology will be clear from the next diagram. If you'll see, so this is uterus, which is attached to the vagina, attached in vagina by the uterosacral ligament. Uterosacral ligament, this will be attaching uterus to the sacrum bone, and cartinal ligament, or we also call this as transcervical ligament or McElrod's ligament. This is cartinal ligament, transcervical ligament, because in transverse or horizontal pattern it is attaching uterus to the pelvic bone. So if there is loosening of this ligament, uterosacral ligament and cartinal ligament, here in this picture we can see these are stress. So because of this loosening, weakness in this ligament, the uterus has been displaced downward. Then here in next picture we can see this is the levator ani plate, which is in horizontal. This is levator ani muscle, which is forming a plate in horizontal pattern and holding all the pelvic organ. If we see, the rectum is coming in it, uterus is coming in it, bladder and urethra is also coming in this. So when this ligament, this is what, uterosacral ligament, okay, when these are loosening up, when these are loosening, they are descending the uterus downward, and what will happen, it will further cause this levator ani muscle, which is holding this organ, displacement. So levator ani muscle will be displaced downward. So जिन organs को उसने hold कर रखा था, they will also be started getting displaced. So this is the further detailed understanding with the help of diagram about the pathophysiology, okay, of the prolapse of the pelvic organ. Then next is, what are the causes? Here we had seen the pathophysiology. Now we have to see what are the causing factors which cause it. So as we know that this prolapse will be occurring mainly because of the weakness of muscles and tissue which are supporting the pelvic organ. The factors which are responsible for that is, one is main important is congenital weakness of the pelvic floor muscle, which happens in very rare case. In very few cases this happen, but what happened in this, you see, if we see this picture, this is a picture of a newborn baby born with the prolapse of the vaginal wall, prolapse of the genitalia. So this happen in congenital weakness of the pelvic floor muscles is the reason for the nulliparous prolapse, or even we call it as virginal prolapse, virginal or nulliparous prolapse. And this is always associated with some kind of congenital diseases like short vagina or spina bifida. That means if there is the neural tube defects or Mullerian tube defects causing the congenital abnormalities in the genitalia, they might cause the prolapse of the with external or internal genitalia in the female by the birth also. So again, this is about the congenital weakness of pelvic floor muscles, which is always associated with any kind of diseases like we had discussed here, and also called as virginal prolapse. Then next is, now this is very important and main factor related to childbirth, because mainly this prolapse are seen in the Barrett's women. So in which cases it's common? Mainly in the cases of grand multipara. The one who had delivered 3, 4 or more children will definitely have prolapse in the future. But so if the vaginal deliveries had been there 3, 4 or 5 multiple times, it will lead to the prolapse. Next is if macrosomic baby has a vaginal delivery. Like macrosomic baby means baby having weight more than 4 kg. So 4, 5 or 6 kg babies, if they are delivered vaginally, then of course it will cause the loosenings of the ligaments and prolapse of the anterior vaginal wall or posterior vaginal wall. Then next is prolonged second stage of labor. So what happened in prolonged second stage of labor? We know what is the second stage of labor, that when cervix get fully dilated and baby has delivered out of the vagina. So from the time period the cervix got fully dilated and the baby has got delivered, that is called the second stage of labor, which normal time is in multipara it will be almost 30 minutes, or in primary it will be up to 2 hours. So if it is extending to 2 hours, means the stage of labor time period has been extended from more than 2 or 3 hours. That means there has been continuously bearing down effect from a long time, which cause the loosenings of the ligaments which are attaching the uterus, or they cause the loosenings of the or weakening of the muscles of the pelvic floor. So that is the reason prolonged second stage of labor may cause the prolapse. Then next is premature bearing down. Premature bearing down, again we know bearing down, when we start a lady to bear down is when they enter the second stage of labor, means when cervix get fully dilated, then only we ask them to bear down. So if they are bearing down in first stage of labor only, when the cervix is not fully dilated, then this may further cause the prolapse of the organs. Then next is difficult labor. If there has been complications in labor, then of course there might be some tears, or this prolonged stage of labors might have come into place. So this will cause the prolapse of the organs. Next is instrumental delivery. Instrumental like vacuum delivery or forceps deliveries. This will also cause the prolapse. The difficult labor and instrumental delivery is one and same. The instrumental delivery will always come in difficult labor only. Then next is laceration of the perineal body. If there has been tears and it has not been repaired in a right pattern, so these tears and lacerations of the perineal body will of course cause the loosening of the perineum wall, or it may further cause the rectoceles or any other prolapse of the posterior wall, or if the lacerations are in anterior vaginal wall, so it may cause the laceration there. Then next is related to menopause, which is very common. Like the women who enter the age of 50, they get the complaint of this especially urine incontinence related to urge or stress. That is because of anterior vaginal wall prolapse. And why it happened? This happened mainly due to estrogen deficiency, because estrogen has a property to hold the collagen fibers. They have a property to cause the collagen fibers to or collagen contents in the fascia to be in a proper way. So if estrogen is decreased, there will be decrease of collagen properties in the muscles or in the ligaments. So because of this decreased collagen property due to decrease estrogen, this menopausal atrophy, menopausal might be the reason for the prolapse in the elderly ladies. Then next is in the cases of increased abdominal pressure like chronic cough, constipation, chronic sneezing or pelvic tumors. Because of this there might be especially the chronic cough and sneezing might get the prolapse of the anterior vaginal wall, like stress incontinence and might be seen in these cases, or constipation may cause the prolapse of the rectum, or in very rare cases prolapse of the androcele, prolapse of the pouch of Douglas. Then next is pelvic tumors. Again, pelvic tumors may cause the prolapse of the posterior vaginal wall. And next is the cases of obesity. In the obese patients also we see the cases of the prolapse, especially the anterior vaginal walls, because of the same reason which was the reason for the menopausal atrophy. That is why, because in obesity what happened, there will be decreased estrogen due to increased androgens. So that is the reason in obese patient we will see the prolapse. So now we know what are the main common factors which are responsible for this. Main is in the elderly ladies old age due to estrogen deficiency, in grand multipara, and macrosomic delivery baby. When macrosomic baby is delivered vaginally or grand multipara, these are the cases in the normal cases of the normal deliveries. Then is the in the cases of chronic coughing or chronic constipation. So the chronic constipation, coughing, sneezing or increased abdominal pressure, grand multipara and old age, these are the main common factors. Then next is if we see to the epidemiology, how common it is. So this is very common problem in women. We mainly see the patients in the gynec OPD. So or mainly in 50% of Paris women we have some or other kind of prolapse. Then 10 to 20% will have some symptoms. So mainly 80 to 90% of patients are asymptomatic. Only 10 to 20% cases we see some kind or mild kind of symptoms. Then almost all 11% of the females have the lifetime risk of developing the prolapse. Then wall prolapse is only seen in 5 to 7% of cases post hysterectomy. So with this epidemiology we can figure out that the chances of women having a prolapse increase as their age advance. So therefore the incidence of prolapse will rise as the life expectancy increases. Then next is with the cases which we commonly see in a gynec OPD is of uterine prolapse. So we'll see to that in detail. So uterine prolapse can be understood in three ways. It has 3 degrees. So first to understand is कि this is the normal position of the uterus, that will be anteverted and cervix will be little posteriorly or mid position. So in first degree what we see that the fundus is vertically and pointing towards the sacral prominently. So this fundus will be not anteverted nor rectoverted, but it will be vertically in first degree prolapse, and cervix will be displaced little bit downward. Then in second stage we see that the fundus will be lying in the sacral region only, sacral hollow, but it will not be lying below the internal os. Like earlier where the internal os has been there, the body of the uterus has descended to there, but the fundus is still above the area where the earlier internal os was located. So cervix would be displaced, will be downward displaced. It will be coming near the vaginal orifice, but won't be coming out of the vagina, and the fundus will be lying just above where earlier internal os was there. Then third degree, what we see, that fundus will be coming below the level of internal os, like where earlier internal os was located, it's coming below that area. So this is for normal uterus position, first degree, second degree, and third degree. Clinically, it can be understood in this way. This is more better understanding of it. What happened in first degree, the uterus will be descending down from its normal position, but the external os remain inside the vagina. Okay, so it will be external os will be in the anterior portion of the cervix, but it will be in the vagina only. In second degree, what happened, the external os protrudes outside the vagina introitus, but the uterine body still remain inside the vagina. So external os might be coming outside the vagina orifice, but the uterus body will be inside vagina only. And in third degree, what will happen, the uterine body itself descend or lie outside the vagina. So outside the vagina we can see the cervix, external os also, and the body of the uterus too. So this is about clinically examine first degree, second degree, and third degree of the uterus prolapse. Then next, what are the symptoms which we see in the patient of uterine patient? Although we had discussed that mainly it is asymptomatic and women will have mild prolapse only, will show only mild prolapse symptoms, or will show no not any kind of symptoms at all. So what are those symptoms? Main common symptom with which female comes in the OPD is with the complaint of mass descending into the vagina. Always they come, and layman language they say that they can see some masses coming out of their vagina orifice. And next is with the symptoms that they come is that they feel some heaviness or discomfort in the lower abdomen or pelvis area. That is also a very common complaint which we say. And next is sometimes they complain of backache or lower abdomen pain, incontinence, especially urge incontinence or stress incontinence. Then next is constipation and dyspareunia. So these are all the symptoms which we see in the cases of prolapse. When females come with this complaint and we examine the vagina, we are able to see any kind of prolapse might be there. So next is, if we see the picture, it gives us clear understanding what kind of symptoms we find clinically. So one is this also, tampons push out. Sometimes female comes and they say that when they're using the tampons, they are coming out. So when they complain of this, first thing we have to do is to examine the vagina if there is prolapse of the uterus. Because of the prolapse only this may happen. Then next is signs. Now clinically how we will examine or what signs we will see in inspection and by manual examination. So while inspecting the vagina, we can see if there is any kind of old perineal tear and some symptoms they are complaining, and then evaluating further we may find the prolapse. Then prolapse structure like uterus third degree uterus prolapse can be simply identified by inspecting the vagina only. And next is stress incontinence. So how can we examine the stress incontinence? In this, what we'll do, we ask the patient to lie in a lithotomy position, and then we explore the labia major and see the anterior vagina wall, and we ask them to cough. So if while coughing there is this wetness and can be see the watery discharge, then it is clear that this is the complaint of stress incontinence, and evaluating further we can see any kind of cystocele, urethrosis or cystourethrosis both. Then next is in clinical exam, like in bimanual examination, we see the size and position of the uterus in adnexa, like if uterus is anteverted or if uterus is straight, like it is not anteverted, not retroverted, then first degree, second degree prolapses might be there. Then sounding also help us very importantly if we see the cervix in the anterior portion, and we have to identify whether this is the case of prolapse or whether this is some congenital abnormalities of cervix. So we use the uterine sound, and when we put the uterine sound and the distance between external os and internal os is coming more than 2.5 or 3 centimeter, that means this is not a prolapse of the uterus but congenital anomaly of the cervix, that is elongation of the cervix is there. Then next is per rectum examination. So antrocele or rectocele can be identified by doing the per rectum examination. Then next is when we take the patient in the positions of torso position, this lithotomy position, with the help of Sims speculum, we can examine the anterior vaginal walls or explore the vagina and find the position of the uterus, or asking the patient to lie left lateral and we can examine the posterior vaginal wall also, or and see the any kind of prolapse of the vault or any rectoceles. Then uterine descent can be examined in one way also, that is we ask the patient to lie in lithotomy position and then we take a single toothed valsalem or any kind of valsalem and we hold the anterior lip of the cervix, external os that is. So when we hold the anterior lip of cervix and we pull it down, if it is coming outside the vagina or if it is coming near the vagina orifice also, that means it is the uterus prolapse. On the position only, up to where it got tracted, means up to which position it has been tracked out, by pulling it, then we can identify whether it is second degree, third degree or first degree prolapse. Then next is one thing more important to be remembered is to find how we will do a differential diagnosis, like how we will come to a final diagnosis if there are other diseases which are relatable to it. So how we'll see if there is cases of Pythagorean gland cyst, if you see the Pythagorean gland cyst or any cyst formation in the labia majora, you may get it confused with the prolapse, but if you closely examined, then it is just in the labia majora, it's not in the vaginal wall. So, and that also it will be lateral side. So this will be Pythagorean gland cyst. Second is skin gland cyst. Skin gland cyst is this. This will be found in the anterior vaginal wall. So here also how you will differentiate, if you see this gland formation, if you see this cyst formation, then you can be easily identified that it is skin gland cyst but not anterior vaginal wall, because in anterior vaginal wall prolapse there will be bulging of the anterior vaginal wall but not this circular form cyst will be formed there. It won't have the boundaries like this as it can be seen in the cyst. Then next, in cases of cervical polyp, should not be misunderstood with the descent of the uterus, but it should be identified with the if you explore the cervix, you can easily see it is simply the polyp but not the cervix or uterus coming down. Then elongation of the cervix, which we had earlier seen how we will differentiate. And then is urethral diverticulum might also be there, which can be identified. So these are some different diagnoses which may confuse with the prolapse of the pelvic organ, but if we have a clear understanding, we can easily make it differentiate. Then next is what are the preventive way, how we can prevent this prolapse to happen. So one is, as we know, this is very common in Paris women. So why it happened? Because of some or any kind of mismanagement during the pregnancy period. So what are they and how we can avoid it? First is in the cases of antenatal or intranatal. So in antenatal or intranatal, if we avoid the injury of the supporting structures during the vaginal delivery only, and how we will avoid it? By giving a proper vaginal support. So proper vaginal support is very important during the time of the delivery of a baby. And next is only asking them to bear down when the cervix is fully dilated, means as soon as they enter in the second stage of labor, then only you ask them to bear down. So this will avoid the prolapse in the future. Next is postnatal care. In postnatal care, especially you will ask them to follow the post-purpurean exercises, that is especially Kegels exercises, and asking to encouraging them to for early ambulation, means early movement. So bed rest for 2-3 days for the normal delivery patient is not advisable, but ask them to start movement after 3 or 4 hours only. Then general measures which we can take is especially to avoid the strenuous activities like chronic constipation, heavy weight lifting, or also maintaining an ideal body weight. They should come in the normal BMI. If too much body weight obesity is there, then this may cause the wall further prolapse of the anterior vaginal walls or further. Then next is avoid the future pregnancies too soon, means they have to opt for the family planning of 1 or 2 kids, and also with the proper gap in the 2 children, means frequent pregnancy should not be there, and this can be followed by proper use of contraceptive. Then next is what is the treatment line. Treatment line can be understood in 2 ways. First is non-surgical treatment and surgical. Surgical treatment is very common which we use, and non-surgical is like we try to avoid the surgery when we are trying to avoid the surgeries, or when surgeries can be avoided. In those cases we will use the non-surgical. So in non-surgical there will be pelvic floor exercise or use of Pesslies or hormonal replacement therapy, especially in the menopausal ladies. In surgical we have removal of the uterus only by vagina or abdominal, or the repair of the anterior vaginal wall or posterior vaginal wall. So one is pelvic floor exercises. We advise this in the cases of mild prolapse. So what happened, which kind of exercises here are main important is Kegel exercise. In this we ask the patient to hold the pelvic floor muscles for 3 to 4 seconds and then relax it. We ask them to do this at least 10 to 15 times in a day, or as much as they can do. If they can do more than 10 to 15 times, it better, it is more good. So they can do it anytime while sitting, walking, or doing the work in kitchen, standing. So whenever they remember, whenever it comes to their mind, they can perform this exercise, Kegel exercise. So in layman language, how we'll explain them? We just ask them to hold their all the pelvic muscles of their, like they are holding the urine, like when their bladder get full and they have a urge of passing the urine and they try to control it, the same way they have to hold the muscles upward direction and hold it for 3 to 4 seconds, then they release it and then they relax it. So this exercise should be done at least 10 to 15 times in a day, or it can be done any time of the day, whether they are sitting, standing, or whether walking. Then next is this Pessly. So Pesslies are inserted in the cases of mild prolapses, or where surgery is contraindicated, where we can't perform the surgeries, or where the surgeries can be avoided and it can be easily managed by this. So Pesslies are what they are? They are nothing but they are made of silicone and a very harmless and soft non-absorbent material, which we will be using to hold the displaced prolapsed organ or the wall. So in the cases of uterus prolapse, this Pessli's uterus is pushed backward and the Pessly is pushed inside. And this may also be used in the cases of anterior vaginal wall, posterior vaginal wall prolapse, but mainly it is used in the cases of uterine prolapse. And what is the drawback of it? That we need to change it every 2 to 3 months, or sometimes it happens that they come out by themselves, like sometimes when the organs start displacing downward and these Pesslies get expelled out. So again and again Pessly insertion will be needed. So these Pesslies come in various forms, like ring form is come, which is very commonly seen, and this cube form Pesslies used to come. This so clinic, there are many different kind of Hodgkin's kinds of Pessly, so many different Pesslies which we use, but the main Paisley is this ring and Hodge Paisley which we use. Then next is estrogen replacement therapy, which we mainly use in the cases of the menopause patient. So in menopause, if we give them the estrogens, that is HRT treatment, this prolapse might be able to manage it, and very efficiently be able to manage with just by giving this oral medication or this local applicants of estrogens. Then next is the surgicals. If we see about the surgical, if there is only prolapse of the anterior vaginal wall, we do the anterior colporrhaphy surgery. So what happens in this surgery? We put the inverted T kind of incision into the anterior vaginal wall. This is we'll expose the anterior vaginal wall. We'll put the T shape inversion. So what we do, with the help of Valsalams, we will pull the anterior lip down, and then we insert the catheter to see the lower limit of bladder. After this, we put this inverted T incision, and then what we'll do, we'll separate the skin, and then we further what do, we will push back the prolapsed organ. Like we identify the bladder and we identify the urethra. Whatever is prolapsed, we will push it back, and then we put the purse string suture. This way purse string sutures are put back, and then it is closed back in the layer. So in place of purse string, these days mesh is also used in the repair of the anterior colporrhaphy surgery. So either the mesh, after pushing the organs back, either the mesh or purse string is used. Then next is what, if there is the prolapse of the posterior wall. So same way we do the perineorrhaphy. So same way we will, with the help of the instruments, we expose the posterior vaginal wall, put the inverted T insertion, identify the prolapse organ, descended organs, push them back, put the purse string suture here, purse string suture or mesh these days, which is commonly used, and then we close back it in layer. So this is for the repair of the posterior vaginal wall. And next is, in the cases of uterus prolapse, we will do the vaginal hysterectomy. Mainly we prefer the vaginal hysterectomy in place of abdominal hysterectomy in the cases of prolapse. Why? Because if there is uterus prolapse, mainly it is followed with the anterior vaginal wall or posterior vaginal wall prolapse also. So along with the vaginal hysterectomy, we do this repair of the anterior vaginal wall and posterior vaginal wall also. So in vaginal hysterectomy, we will do what? We'll first we will explore the vagina and find the cervix. Then we will perform it in three ways. Like first we will clamp the uterosacral ligament, McElnot's ligament, and then cervical artery. As we clamp, along with that we will start doing the ligation. So first clamping and doing the ligation of uterosacral ligament, McElnot's ligament, and cervical artery. Then in second, what we'll do is we'll do the clamping and ligation of uterine artery and base of broad ligament. Then in third step, we do what? Clamping and ligation of round ligament, fallopian tubes, and ligaments of ovary and mesosalpinx. With this help, we will be able to take out the uterus, and as we do it, after that what we'll do, this here we will repair the vault. Okay, this from here we had taken out the uterus, and further we had put the stitches on the vault. Rest, when we had clamp, we had ligated them. When we had clamp and ligated, we had stitched them at that time only. So this way vaginal hysterectomy will be done. Now if we see what in Ayurveda, how we can correlate it with this prolapse can be correlated. So our acharyas in the era of BC only, they had discussed about some kind of diseases which relate to the prolapse, that we can come to know if we see the shlokas of the acharyas. in respective of that. So seeing this in Ayurveda, how we can relate this prolapse? So our acharyas has mainly talked about the female reproductive diseases in the Yoni Vyapata. Yoni Vyapata is the diseases or disorders coming in the yonis. So in that they had talked about mainly 20 Yoni Vyapata, out of which 3 Yoni Vyapat can be correlated with the prolapse. So what are the references where we find it? Mainly in Charak Chikitsa Sthan 30th chapter we find about that, and in Shushruta, as Acharya Shushruta has told, he has talked about it in his Uttar Sthandha 38th chapter, and Bhagavad in Ashtang Hridaya Uttar Sthan 38th chapter. So what are the diseases or what are the Yoni Vyapat which can be correlated are Mahayoni, Prasansni, Andani and Phalni Yoni Vyapata. These 3 Yoni Vyapata. So Mahayoni Vyapata has been discussed by Acharya Charak only because of the Visheshan of a Vata dosha, but Acharya Shushruta have further considered with the Visheshan of all the 3 doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Also Andani and Phalni, it was discussed by Acharya Shushruta with the Visheshan of all 3 doshas only. So Mahayoni and Andani, Phalni are because of mainly 3 doshas, Visheshan, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, as talked by Acharya Shushruta, and Prasansni by Acharya Shushruta talked about the Visheshan of a Pitta dosha. So if we see their shlokas, we see that Mahayoni can be correlated with the 3rd degree uterine prolapse, and Prasansni with the 2nd degree uterine prolapse. Andani, Phalni can be compared with the prolapse of anterior vaginal wall or posterior vaginal wall. So just in brief we will see, because here just we seeing the correlation. So this shloka, if we see, it says that there will be continuous excessive vaginal discharge which will cause the displacement of the uterus. This word Shopita. Shopita means the displacement. So, and this displacement what will cause? It will cause Dukha Prasasha, means difficulty in labor. So with this we can correlate it with 2nd degree uterus prolapse. So because it is saying in the complication of chronic continuous excessive discharge, Prasansni Seyantate Tu Shopita, means continuous irrational irritational excessive discharge will cause the displacement of uterus, and Duk Prasasha means in difficulty in labor. With this we can correlate it with 2nd degree uterus prolapse. Then next is, so here we see Acharya Charak Shloka. So in the shloka we see there are few words which will help us to correlate with the 3rd degree uterus prolapse. So what are this? If you see the second line of a shloka, it says Garbhashyasya Yonishasya Mukham Vishtambete Striya, means there will be in this Mahayoni Vyapata, there will be dilation and orifices, dilation of the uterus and vagina, means dilation of the uterus, that is Yoniyashe Mukham, means even the cervix dilation will be there, that is also it will be causing displacement, and Garbhashya Mukham means Garbhashya Mukham is uterus displacement and dilation, and Yoniyashe Mukham means vaginal dilation will be there. And also if we see here Mansa Utsanaha Mahayoni, that is mainly we see in the 3rd degree uterus prolapse. Mansa Utsanaha Mahayoni means in Mahayoni we see the muscle protuberance coming out of the yoni, that is vagina. So this shloka clearly help us to correlate it with 3rd degree uterus prolapse. And also if we see the shloka by Acharya Shushruta, it has for Mahayoni he has given very simple shloka, and only the first word itself only help us to correlate it. What is it? Says Vivritaha Atihi Mahayonihi. Vivritaha Atihi Mahayoni, that means excessive dilation of the uterus and vagina. Excessive dilation of this vagina and the uterus orifice will cause the Mahayoni. So this also help us to identify and correlate it with 3rd degree uterus prolapse. Then next is Next is Antony or Falni Yoni Vyapat. So here what Acharya has said in Shloka is that Ati kahe krihita hai sa taruna hai falani bhavate. That means if normally there is the disproportion in the size of male and female genital, Ati kahe krihita sa tarune means the female genital orifice will be too small and male will have an excessive long or excessive genital. So that disproportion will what it will do, it will cause the perineal injury or vaginal tears, which may further lead to anterior vaginal wall or posterior vaginal wall prolapse. So because of this disproportion in the size of genitalia of both the partners will cause this Antony or Falni univyapata, which can be correlated with the anterior vaginal wall or posterior vaginal wall prolapse. Also, Acharya Bhavaprakash has told in her shloka that there will be initially narrowing of yoni, which will cause the protuberance of it like an egg. So initially, if the yoni is at the vagina is too much narrow, later on there might be a protuberance of it, which give it a resemble of an egg. Hence, it is called as Antony or Antony Yoni Vyapat. That again means that protuberance of the yoni means anterior vaginal wall or posterior vaginal wall bulging out and the prolapse in this organ. So this is all about the correlation, understanding of the prolapse and their correlation with the Ayurveda. Thank you. Hope this lecture was helpful for you for understanding the prolapse in detail.